This video brought to you in part by Tommy and the Order of Cosmic Champions. This exciting and heartwarming coming-of-age Gen X novel is available now. Check the link for more info. Well, news moves fast. Just yesterday, I posted my editorial video talking about the press release from Atari that said they had acquired the license, the rights to 12 classic arcade titles, including Berserk and Frenzy. I'll put a link to that video up there. I kind of talked about what this could mean for Atari and what it could mean for us as collectors and arcade fans. And I said if there was an update, I would let you know. Well, all 12 of the games have now been announced, and I have footage of all of them, so maybe you can see what we have in store. Hey there, welcome back to Gen X Grown Up. I am John, and I am a Gen X Grown Up, and this news just gets more and more interesting. The day after the press release, the Atari version of Berserk, the 2600 port, was already on the VCS store. So they wasted no time in taking advantage of this new distribution right, which is fantastic. I mean, that's what you want to see. Get this thing, start acting on it. So at least they're serious about that. So if you have the VCS, you want to play the old 2600 Berserk, it's only $3 on the VCS store. More importantly, though, what I'm going to do here is I've grabbed footage of all 12 of the games, almost, there's one exception, and show you, in addition to Berserk and Frenzy, the one thing I did get right was, in fact, these are all Stern titles. Now, they weren't my favorite Stern titles that I listed that I had hoped were in this, and some of these I've never played before, but and varying quality that I'm excited about, more or less, the different ones. But let's not waste any more time. Let's get into it, and you decide what you think. We'll start with the obvious two that we already knew about. Berserk, 1980 from Stern. That's the running in a maze. Your little guy, Evil Otto, is trying to get you because you run humanoid, get kill the intruder, all the speech synthesis stuff. A great classic game. And then, of course, there is Frenzy that came out 2 years later in 1982. This is a natural evolution of Berserk. You have destroyable walls, you have ricocheting bullets, you have the power plants. It's Berserk and more is what it is effectively. So these two kind of go together hand in hand. I got to think they're going to be distributed together. Probably anywhere you see one, you're going to see the other. Okay, so the next one I want to talk about is Moon War. This is also a Stern title. They all are. 1981. Playing this is almost like Asteroids with no inertia. So you control with a spinner and 3 buttons. You have fire, thrust, and shield that you're navigating over the surface of the moon, and you're defeating enemies and protecting fuel bases. Pretty boilerplate, kind of, classic early 80s arcade game. The next one came out in 82 from Stern called Dark Planet. Now, this control is very much the same. Again, it's a spinner and 3 buttons. I can imagine this might have been a refit for the Moon War cabinet. This time the 3 buttons are fire, thrust, and a bomb. But this is really interesting. You'll notice this has that Pepper's Ghost reflective overlay, underlay, whatever. You've got to be able to see this planet area because you actually operate on 2 levels. When you're up high, you're blue. When you go down to the surface, you're red. And it can be a little tough to control without a proper spinner, but the target is to destroy these 3 little bases around the perimeter of the planet. And again, you can't play without the reflective thing, so any release is going to have to mimic what used to be, I guess, this reflective on glass thing that we had from Space Invaders. The next one is called Armored Car. This is from 1981, and I really like this. It reminds me kind of like a Pac-Man mousetrap maze game mashup. You're running around in this kind of a gridlock little maze. You pick up the money. You're trying to make your way to the bank, but there are these traffic lights where you can only go through them vertically or horizontally, and they change periodically. You can also drop down these little barriers to stop the other cars. You have a limited number of those. It's a high score chase in your little armored car. I'm guessing they're bad guys trying to hijack your armored car. So this next one is the only one I don't have footage for. And in fact, I didn't even know this was a Stern game. I can find very little information on it, but it's called Atomic Castle. And it was manufactured by Laserdisc Computer Systems and distributed by Stern in 1984. I can only find these 2 blurry, fuzzy images of what the video looks like in the Laserdisc game. I can read you the description. Venture through a radioactive fortress to find and disarm a doomsday device. Destroy radiation balls and other objects to keep the radiation meter down. A life is lost if the radiation gets too high. So I've never seen or played Atomic Castle, and so guess as you can what it might be like to play. I can't even find video of it online. We'll see. Is Atari going to get into the laserdisc reproduction streaming video game business? Maybe they got it. So the next one is Great Guns, 1984 from Stern. This is probably the least interesting of all these games to me. It's like a little shooting gallery. It's a light gun game. You shoot the balloons or the guy on the roller coaster or the strongman bell or the Ferris wheel, whatever. You're just shooting in a Ferris wheel and you have a limited amount of ammo. It's light gun game. So this next one is called Mazer Blazer. This came out in 82 from Stern. And this one, you just have a little reticle that's in the center and you have to protect your little spaceship from enemies closing in this maze. So you're kind of like top down, destroying guys in a maze so they don't get to your little spaceship in the middle. I kind of enjoyed the bonus level of this, where they show you where these targets are, then they cover them up. You have to remember locationally kind of where they were. That's the bonus level. I didn't come away from this one super impressed, but I mean, it could be interesting if recharged, maybe. These last four I've grouped together because, look, if you're a fan of Robotron-style dual-stick shooter games, have I got good news for you, because there are 4 of them in this set of 12, and they're all pretty interesting. The first one is actually one that I hoped would make it to this list that I have played before, really like it. 1982's Lost Tomb. Now this you have this big kind of tower, this Aztec tower, and you enter, but it's a dual stick shooter running around in a maze, right? So you're shooting enemies kind of gauntlet style, but it's all move with one stick, shoot with the other stick. To achieve, gathering treasure and stuff. It's an interesting, progressive game. I'm glad it was on the list. The next one is the same year, 1982, Stern's Rescue. This is really cool. So another dual stick shooter, but this time it's a helicopter rescue game. So the object, think like Choplifter, but over the water, right? So there are these paratroopers coming down. Don't shoot the paratroopers, you shoot the enemies around them. You have to dodge the enemies when they fall, and then once the guys hit the water, you get really close to the water with your little helicopter. A ladder comes down, the guy comes up, you gather a few guys, then you have to drop them off on this little island. Clever game, great use of dual stick shooter, not one I'd seen before, but I mean, I'm ready to play more of this one. 2 more, 1982's Tazz-mania, nothing to do with the Tasmanian devil. This is another dual stick shooter, and it's a cute little game with a lot of character. The object is you have this little guy, little green guy that when he walks away, he has a little butt you can see, but you need to clear these rooms of enemies while dodging these bouncing around swarming attackers. But the thing is, the walls are closing in like Star Wars trash compactor scene. You've got to clear the room and stay alive before the walls crush you. And then if you can clear the room, there's an exit at the top of the room you have to make your way up to exit to clear the level. Clever game, not one I'd played before, but I get why Atari would grab this one. This last one is maybe my favorite of the games I'd never seen from Stern here. This is 1983's Minefield, another dual stick shooter, as I mentioned. This one is a tank combat game. There are shades of Moon Patrol, there are shades of Two Tigers in this. Essentially, you're moving your little tank around the ground. On the ground, you have to dodge mines while picking up rockets. Plus, you're using the right stick to shoot enemies that are up in the sky. And finally, when those enemies fall, you've got to dodge their flaming Hulk. Just shooting is not the end of it. You've got to make sure you're not underneath them when they fall to hit the ground. This is a clever and fun dual stick shooter. I spent way too much time playing this when I was capturing the footage. I'm like, I've got to get in there and record this video. I can't keep playing Minefield. But this might be my favorite, aside from Berserk, of course, that I was an all-time favorite. This might be the one that I'm most excited to see what Atari does to iterate on this game, if in fact that's what they're gonna do. So tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this lineup? Are there any here that you knew well or you're excited to see or play now that they can be distributed by Atari and sequels can be made and merchandise can be present? Several I hadn't heard of, several I'd never seen before. Stern was kind of, they had a few hits with your Berserks and stuff, but they were a workhorse, even though they didn't produce big hits. And so this is an interesting, there's not a bunch of repeats, which is a nice thing. It's not just, it's the same thing over and over again. There are new ideas here, a couple that are similar to each other, which is kind of a great evolution, kind of to be expected. But yeah, sound off. I'd love to hear what you think about these or any that were your favorites. I'll throw some links over my shoulders here to some other videos we have had covering Atari and these news items. I certainly hope you found something to enjoy enjoy in this quick update, and I can't wait to talk to you next time. Bye-bye.